So if we could start with your full name, please.
Anthony D'Acquisto.
And can you spell that?
The last part of
I
Anthony.
think we got Anthony.
Okay, it's D apostrophe A C Q U I S T O.
Great. And where and when were you born?
I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on March the 6th, 1926 on Jefferson Street.
So how old are you today?
I am 92.
Great. And which branch of the military did you serve with?
The Navy.
Okay. And what was your rate or rank in the Navy?
I was a BT, which is a boiler tender.
And what years did you serve from and until?
1943 to 1956.
And which ship or ships did you serve on?
Well, my first ship was an APA, which was an amphibious personnel attack ship. That's the one that dropped troops on the ground, take them in and drop them off. And then my second ship was the aircraft carrier Randolph. And I served on that from January 1945 to November 1956.
And did the APA have an identification number or name?
It was APA was 147.
Okay. And which theater of operations did you serve in World War II?
Pacific area. When I first went on that APA, was in what was it, about November of 1943. I served on that, made trips to we helped with the Philippine deal, That's when they started taking back the other Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
We started with that, and then I stayed with them until 1944, the end of 1944. We had headed back to San Francisco, and I was asking for transfer all along for an aircraft carrier, and I finally got it. On January 1st, I got on the Randolph. Picked it up in New York at the Naval Air Station there. It was just commissioned when I got onto it. It came all the way from where it got commissioned to the canal and up to San Francisco.
Brand new.
Picked up the air group there, and after we got settled down, we headed out and we bypassed Pearl Harbor and went right straight to an island called Ulithi. That's where the fleet was all gathering around there, and we were assigned to a task force at that time.
Okay. So before we elaborate on that, I want to rewind a little bit. Talk about your childhood growing up in Milwaukee, and your parents. Who were your parents, and what did they do for a living?
Well, my parents were from Sicily, and my father actually had the job as an electrician for a coal yard, and my mother was a housewife. And me, as a grown-up boy, I was a erratic kid.
How so?
I didn't like school, one thing. I liked to go around helping people. Like I'd go around different places where I got help in a grocery store or a butcher shop or something like that, Mm-hmm. Worked in a little theater for a while when I was about 15, 16. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, when World War II broke out, I was at a movie theater and they announced that Pearl Harbor was attacked at that time. And I think I was 16 then, 16 or 15, I forget. Anyway, for a while then, after we got there, got that all done, my folks decided they wanted to move to San Diego. So first off, my brother went there first, and my sister and I went together, and then later on my mother and father came out. And while I was in San Diego, I worked for a bowling alley, darn it, a delivery boy for bicycle, messenger delivery with bicycle, mail, whatever they call that time. And then I worked at the Naval District as a boy to work with the, well, I was a messenger boy, let's put it that way. I stayed for them for a while until the end of 1942.
And
Yeah, 42, I was 15.
and what were you doing at the bowling alley? What was your job there?
Set up pins.
You remember how much you were making doing that?
No, not very much. It wasn't very much, I tell you.
So you had one brother and one sister,
That's what I had, yes.
and you guys moved to San Diego
Yes.
before your parents did.
Yes.
And where were you
We
guys?
stayed with my father's sister.
Okay.
Okay, then after that, I asked to go to North Island because I wanted to get into aviation. And they transferred me to North Island. I was working at where you take the engines that had to be overhauled apart and get them set up, and get them all cleaned off, and then later on you put them back together again. And I did that till the end of, let's see, 44, 43. Well, the beginning of 43 I quit because in March of 43 is when I wanted to join the Navy. I had to get my mother's permission. So I got that. And I went into boot camp from there into San Diego. Spent my 4 months in boot camp. After boot camp, they sent me to Coronado to learn about the amphibious training, how to run the P-boats,
Let me ask you this: when you were in the movie theater and you found out that Pearl Harbor had been attacked, did you know where Pearl Harbor was?
I did not know where Pearl Harbor was.
And did you have any idea what that really meant at the time?
No, I know it was an island someplace, but I didn't know exactly where it was or what it was.
And did you have any conversations with your friends or family about, sort
Well,
of-
just talking about what they did over there, that's all.
Mhm.
No, but I don't think my dad even knew where it was.
And did you want to join the military at that time? I know you're too young, but
I wanted to join at that time because I know the next year I would have been 18, they would have put me in a draft. And when you get drafted, they put you where they want to put you. So I want to do what I want to do. So that's why I joined early.
and what was the reason for choosing the Navy?
Well, my dad was in the Navy before. And that's the only part. He was the First World War man. And he had his training at Illinois, that place in Illinois. Boot camp up there or something. Be quiet.
So you also had an interest in aviation, then?
Yes, I did. Very much so.
What was
I
your
always wanted to
connection
be a
that?
flyer, but I couldn't be a flyer because I didn't have the schooling.
Mhm.
You had to have college and stuff like that. So Okay, that's why I went to the Naval Air Station to mess around with the engines and the airplane and stuff like that.
So
Get
did
a
you,
start out anyway.
so did you complete? You didn't complete high school.
No,
How far did you get?
8th grade.
So you quit school after the 8th grade,
That's when I moved out to California.
and that's when you started working.
Yeah.
Did your parents have anything to say about you stopping school, or was that commonplace back then?
I think for me it was commonplace. I just did not like school. I really did not.
And your brother, is he older or younger than you?
Oh, he was 5 years older than I am. And my sister was 3 years older than I was.
Did your brother serve in the war as well?
Yes, in fact, when I was working at the 11th Naval District, he come up to me and he says, "Can you get me in the Navy?" I said, "Well, I know the admiral up there. I'll take it to him." So I took it to him, and the only two ranks they did there at that place, if you joined up there, was a yeoman or a radioman. He decided to be a radio man. So he went in before I did. I think he was in 42, he went in.
So tell me again about your basic training and.
It was about the P-boats and stuff like that. Well, it was very interesting to tell you. They showed us how to operate the boat. They gave us trial runs off the beach and onto the beach, and you had to back off them with those boats. You can't go around because the boat just go like this, So you had to back out of it all the time. And you had to be careful not to broach the boat, because if you did, that thing would probably swip over on you. When we went aboard ship, we were attached to the crew, to the boat crews, just, our one group. Because they had the regular ship's company people there and stuff like that. But we did work with the ship's company when they have nothing to do with the boat. We did regular work on the ship. I started out as a seaman on there, in fact, I didn't get to be a boiler tender till, I'd say about 3 or 4 months later. Because I said, I want to go in the engine room. And he said, okay. So I went in the engine room.
And what was your interest in getting in the engine room? I understand it was pretty warm in there.
Well, it is, but it's very exciting too. It's very exciting, and you did better things there than you did on the deck. It was a little warm, yeah, but you get used to it. You got blowers down there. Had to take a lot of salt tablets.
Sweating a lot, huh?
Yeah. She's crying.
Okay. So when did you finish your basic training?
Was let me see now, 43. It was March 43 I went in. After the basic training, we picked up the Cottle, the amphibious ship, up in Oregon, and that was almost the end of March. It was commissioned up there, in fact. I was a plank owner on that ship. Okay, after we got all done, we set out. The first thing we did, we picked up some what was it? Seabees, I think it was. Seabees. Which we took out to the Philippines. On the way back, we stopped at Guam, and we picked up 200 Japanese prisoners and took them to Pearl Harbor.
What was that experience like for you?
Well, I was a seaman at the time there, you know, and they made me guard duty for them. They were in a special place forward on the ship. It was a big room, you know, and they put them in there. And they didn't like our food. They complained about our food. You know, they didn't like what we served them. They wanted their fish and rice, whatever they wanted to eat, you know. So they did that. And after we dropped them off, we went back to San Francisco.
Did you have any trouble with any of them? Or
No,
was it
no
pretty-
trouble at all. In
pretty
fact, a
uneventful?
couple, while I was on duty there, a couple spoke English. And we japped, we spoke a little bit. One guy said he could climb the thing up there and jump overboard if he wanted to, you know. But that's about it. What else? Okay, like then I said, then we were. I got on January 1st on a Randolph, and like I said, we
But you were on the APA for about a year, you said, right?
just pretty close, yeah.
So what other experiences did you have aboard the APA?
With the APA.
Correct.
Well, like I said, we were more or less like a shuttle service.
Yeah. So where did you guys?
All right. Well, in Pearl Harbor, we picked up some of those. They are now CBs, you know, but they're not CBs, but oh dear, what the hell they call them now? The sailors that are the sailors that were made like a squad, you know. What they call them guys now? Oh dear. Sometimes I'll remember it. I don't know when, but
All right.
anyway, we picked them up and brought them back to the States. I guess they had to finish their job. But there wasn't much on the. Oh, we did spot a mine out there while we were traveling, and we tried shooting it down, you know, shooting it out. When they did hit it, it didn't blow up; it just sunk.
So were you guys traveling with other APAs as well? Or
No, we were by ourselves at the
completely
time.
by yourself.
Yeah, we never were in a task force or anything like that.
And for
Not-
the most part, it was pretty uneventful. As
Yeah,
far as,
yeah. The AP is the one that was the good one. We saw action and stuff like that. Like like I say, when we got there at Ulithi, we were assigned to a task force group, which the Iowas was in that group that we were in, and we made raids on Japan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, every time. In March of that year, we got through with the raids, and we went to Ulithi for, like you say, rest area and refurbish, you know. And it was about 8 o'clock at night when I had just started my job in the engine room, and they were going to show movies. And then all of a sudden I heard this big, loud, big boom. And it was an aircraft, a Japanese aircraft hit us on the fantail. It went through the flight deck into the hangar deck. It killed about 35 guys and wounded about 120 of them. Lucky me, I was in the engine room. And in fact, I got pictures of that.
Do you still?
Yeah. It's on my computer if you want to see it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
And that was in March.
So this is once you're on the Randolph.
Yeah. And that was right after it happened. The next day, they sent a repair ship alongside of us and start repairing that damage in the deck, flight deck. They didn't care about the one down below because they wanted to get the flight deck going, you know.
So I imagine the Randolph is a bit bigger than the APA that you were on prior.
Absolutely. It's as long as that Iowa, 887 feet long.
So did your workload increase at all?
And
Being on a bigger ship? Did your
no,
responsibility?
it didn't increase. It just, it was a much higher, much higher temperature, you might say, to run the ship than it was on the Cottle. See, the Cottle, you had to have about 300 pounds of steam, to get it going and working things. On the Randolph, you have to have 800 pounds of steam. So, which is much bigger, because you had a bigger ship and it moved a lot faster than the APA. The APA did about 16 knots, or we did about 30 knots.
And what type of aircraft flew off of the Randolph?
Well, we had the fighters were Corsairs. The dive bombers were Curtiss aircraft, which took the place of the SBD. That was a dive bomber. So the Curtiss one took over the job as a dive bomber. And then we had a torpedo bomber.
And did you have a battle station?
My battle
inside?
station was the engine room.
Okay. So you spent majority of your time down there.
Yeah. Well, our hours were pretty good. We in regular time, we put on 4 hours and take off 8 hours.
Okay.
In 8 hours, they let us do what we wanted to do. So a lot of times I went up deck and watched the airplanes flying off.
So you said you guys were there for support at Iwo Jima and Okinawa
Yeah, and
Ulithi?
well, Ulithi was a staging station.
Okay.
In Japan, we put raids on Japan, bombed Tokyo and stuff like that.
What do you remember from your time at Iwo Jima?
We just
How far out was your ship from the island?
I'd say we were about a couple miles out. The plane took off and went over there and hit them.
Did they all come back?
Yeah, the majority of them did, yes.
And did you have any interaction with any of the pilots at all, or were you guys
No,
pretty separate?
no. Didn't have time. I like to say, how about taking me off on a skid,
Because I know you were into aviation. I
Yeah.
didn't know if you talked any of them into giving you a ride anywhere.
Well, I did that after a while. When I went back in the reserves, when I got out of the Navy, went into the reserves, I joined an air group. And I got my rides there, which was fun.
And it was the same experience at Okinawa for you guys as well? You guys?
Yeah, it's about it all. We couldn't go ashore or anything. Just had to stay out to sea, send the planes out. That was it.
Were there any enemy fighters that?
Not
came
at
in
the
your
time.
area?
No. The only time we saw that fighter that hit us, that's the only time.
And where was that again?
In Ulithi,
Okay.
we were at anchor. when it happened.
So you were you were watching a movie.
No, I was in the engine room.
You were in the engine room.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was number 4 engine room.
And he said you felt the
I heard.
vibration. You heard it.
Heard it. And it shook the plane. I shook the ship a little bit.
And what was your initial thought?
My God, what happened? That was my thing. What the hell happened? And then we found out later on what happened.
Did you stay in the engine room at the time, or did you?
I had to stay in the engine room.
Yeah, you
I had to
couldn't
watch
leave.
the boiler because we had to keep power on the ship while we're anchored. Couldn't get power anyplace else.
How long was it until you found out what?
Not very long. Not very long. People came running to the engine room, told us what had happened. Then after everything was good and everything, when we got off duty, we went back there and looked at it and saw what the hell happened, you know.
And what was your reaction when you saw the
I said,
damage?
oh my God. I just, oh my God.
And did you know any of the other sailors that had been killed?
No, I really didn't. It was because most of them were all flight crews or ship people. Yeah, and a ship like that, you don't get to know too many people. I met a few of them, but
A lot of crew members on board.
oh yeah.
Do you remember how many men?
Well, we had over 2,000 people in there. We had a majority of 90 airplanes.
So what would you do in your free time when you weren't watching the planes?
My free time, I always went topside, walked the deck when I had to, looked at the airplanes, messed around. That was it.
Do you have any good friends that you made aboard ship?
Yeah, and the engine room guys, a couple of engine room, we were good buddies, very good buddies. Every time we had Liberty, when we had it, we went together places.
Where would you go?
Well, wherever the ship stopped.
Well, where were those
Well,
places?
we wasn't much of a land. The ship was strictly all the time at sea, Sometimes they took us ashore at Ulithi and give us a break and give us that cheap beer you drink, and play ball or something like that out there. That's the only information,
Pretty desolate for the most part.
Yeah, I'd say so. It was exciting times, but it was pretty nice. The planes is what makes you, some guys did crack up on the airplane coming up landing, but that's about it.
How so? Can you elaborate on that?
I'll take one for instance. He coming in for a landing, and he missed the hook, so they had to put up this barrier, come up, to stop him from going all the way into the other airplanes, and he hit that. And by the way, there was a guy there that, because I was on the side of the ship watching this, the guy that had the suit on, the fire suit or something, well, when that plane hit that barrier there, it broke off part of the cable there, and it wrapped right around this guy's head. It wounded him pretty good. They took him right away back down to sick bay.
I imagine that would do some pretty good damage to him.
It did, yes. It's lucky he lived. I guess the suit helped a lot too, because it was a heavy suit.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you miss home at all while you were out to sea?
To tell you the truth, no. I enjoyed the sea. I just love sailing,
Was that your first time being on a ship?
Oh,
Once you joined
yes.
the Navy?
Well, the Cottle was the first time on a ship. Yeah, I love the sea. I was the only guy that, in fact, on the Cottle, I had to do twice the lookouts all the time because the other guys got sick. Oh, he got seasick and stuff like that. I never got seasick.
What are your some of your fondest memories of your time in the Navy?
Well, after the war, when the war was over, we went back to the East Coast, and they made us what they called went back to Italy and picked up troops and brought them back. That was the first part. Then they made us a training ship, which was where we went to Annapolis, picked up midshipmen, took them down to Guantanamo Bay, and we messed around there a while, then take them back. And the last time when they this was in 40, 45, yeah, 46, beginning of 46. After that, we had to go into dry dock. And I got a 10-day pass for dry dock, from that deal. So I couldn't make it back to California to go see my parents because there wasn't enough time. And I couldn't fly because I didn't have the money to fly. So what I did, I went back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and went to stay with my uncle there in Milwaukee for my 10 days. When I got back, the guys were telling me, hey, there's an all-nav out saying that anybody who volunteered for 6 years can get out if they want to. So I said, I think I get out. And that's what I started. I got discharged. Well, before I got discharged, they knew I knew how to typewrite, So they asked me to stay down there a while and help make out the discharge for the other guys. So I stayed, did that for a while. I did that for, I'd say about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I was tired. I said, hey, why should I do that? Why did I do my own? So I filled out my own thing, and I got discharged.
You just typed up your own discharge papers?
Yeah.
Now, where were you when you got word that the war had ended?
We were aboard ship.
But where?
We were out at sea.
You were out at sea.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, we were heading back to our normal shooting down, hitting the islands again.
And had you guys gotten word that the war in Europe had ended?
Oh yeah, we got that too. We also got the word where President Roosevelt died too. That was on the APA when I heard that one.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, I said, oh geez, man, terrible. He was a good man. I liked that guy. A lot of people didn't like him, but I think he did pretty good. Getting the country back into shape again.
So once you got word that the war in Europe had ended, did you have a sense that you guys would be done fighting soon as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when when they were getting ready to go into Japan to sign the declaration and everything, well, we were out at sea around the area when they had all the aircraft carriers sent their planes up and sending them flying over that place there. And then right after that, we had orders to go back east.
So before they dropped the bombs on Japan, had you guys been in preparation to? I know you guys weren't going to make
getting ready to
invasion,
invade Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were all getting set up. Yeah.
And did you hear about the bombs that had been dropped?
Eventually, we did.
And
We wonder what the hell was that, a bomb like that. Boy, I don't know. I don't think I'd like it. No, after that stuff there, and I went to work. My first airline that I worked for was Pan Am. I joined them in 1951, Pan Am, and I quit them in 1983. I spent 32 years with Pan American. I started as a regular helper, and started working my way up. I went to school to get my license, which, A&P license. And I gradually went up to master mechanic. And eventually I got to be a supervisor. And I went back to school to get my supervisor, though.
So
I had to finish my high school.
So after the war, you returned to your love for aviation and worked for the airlines for a number of years.
I did a lot of traveling with Pan Am. I did more traveling with Tower. Because with Tower, I was a tech rep aboard the airplane. I stayed with the airplane wherever it went. And that was a lot of fun, that one there. The Tower, with Pan Am, I did a lot of work too. I was assigned to the emergency crew one time, where we had an incident where one of our planes coming back from the East Coast had an engine problem, and he was loaded, and he couldn't fly over the mountains, so he stopped at Winslow, Arizona. They had to send us guys out there to change the engine.
So you guys took care of it, got it all fixed up,
and we flew back with it.
Somebody's got to test the new engine out.
Yeah. But that place was cold up there, man.
Where's that?
Winslow, Arizona.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it was in March. And that place was cold. We had to get warm, heater gloves or something like that, put on our hands. We had to stop, work 10 minutes, get off, warm up, go back, work a little bit more. It was hell. And also I got signed to different stations at a time. In fact, I went back to Japan for 6 months.
Working with the airlines?
Yeah.
Where in Japan were you working?
At Tachikawa. A place called Tachikawa. We had planes that came in and brought in troops and brought in supplies. There was one, we took care of one of the other airlines that was there. He had the Connie, the Constellation airplane, which it came in loaded with stuff, and then we had to take it, when we were taking off, we had to put the seats back in so take passengers back.
And then, when did you retire from working with the airline?
1992.
So once you'd returned from the war, you came back to California?
Oh, yeah.
And you'd been living here ever since?
Well, not here.
But in California?
I went back to just hoping I was back in San Diego again, but my folks had moved to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So when after I got back, I went to see my brother because he was still in San Diego. And after that, then I took a trip back up to San Francisco, and I stayed with my parents up there. And I stayed doing nothing, just collecting my 5220 for almost a year, until my dad come up to me and says, "Come on with me." So he took me where he was working at a fish market. He made boxes to hold the fish, And they put me to work down there cutting fish, making fillets and stuff like that. And I did that for a while. And then I went down to Fisherman's Wharf down there and worked at one of the restaurants outside the restaurants, cooking the crabs and stuff like that. I'll tell you this. Then after that, my uncle come up to see us from San Diego. He says, "Come on back down with me." And I said, "Okay." So I went back down to San Diego, and I went to Consolidated Aircraft down there and got a job there for a while. But before I went there, I had put an application in for the Muni Railroad in San Francisco. And while I was working there, then later on, about 2-3 months, my sister calls me up and says, "Hey, the railroad called you and wants you to come over and see if you want the job." I said, "Okay." So I quit and I went back up there, and I got a job as a motorman, working for them for 2 years. And that's when I started with Pan Am after that.
So it seems like your whole life you've been working with various types of engines.
Yeah, I did, yeah. I just loved it. You know. In fact, I did my own cars when they were easy to work on before.
That's amazing. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your time in the Navy that we haven't talked about?
Not really. But it was normal after the war, and just sailing here and there and going ashore. That's about it.
So if there's any advice you could offer my generation or future generations, what would you be able to offer?
I say if they wanted to go in the military, take the Navy. You know, it was a good deal. It was better than roaming around the ground, humping in the mud and stuff like that, where you had a shower every day if you wanted it and stuff like that. It was much more pleasant.
And that's why you decided to enlist, so you could make that decision for yourself.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Okay. You want to see those pictures?
I'd love to.